Find a comfortable position. Let your body settle without hurry. There is nothing you need to hold upright now. Nothing you need to keep carrying from one part of the afternoon into the next. Today's story is called A 20-Minute Nap in a Linen Daybed Room. The room is already resting. Afternoon has been inside it for long enough to soften everything without brightening it too much. The daylight does not fall into the room in one clean, uninterrupted beam. It arrives filtered through curtains, gentled by fabric before it ever reaches the floorboards or the daybed beneath the window. Because of that, the room has no glare in it, only a pale held brightness at the edges of things. The nearer fold of curtain, the softer stretch of wall, the line of the daybed where the light reaches one side more fully than the other. The daybed waits beneath that filtered light as though it has been waiting all afternoon. It is long enough for the body to settle without having to negotiate with it. A linen cover lies over it, not sharply spread, but smooth in the middle, and more lightly gathered at the edges where hands have straightened it only as much as needed. The fabric has its own quiet truth to it. Softer where bodies have rested before, flatter where repeated weight has taught it where to give. Near the back, a pillow or long bolster waits against the wall, enough to receive shoulders, head, or one side of the body. Once sitting begins to become something slower and heavier. You lower yourself onto it, and the daybed receives you at once. The linen beneath you shifts only a little. The cushion or mattress under it gives more in the middle than at the sides. The backs of your legs meet at first, then the hips, then the lower spine as the body settles more fully into the length of the daybed. One hand may come to rest on the cover beside you. The other may steady itself at the mattress edge or against the nearby pillow. Nothing in the room asks you to arrange yourself precisely. The support is already there. The stillness is already there. Afternoon has already prepared the room for exactly this. The linen beneath your hand is cooler in one fold, warmer in another. That difference comes partly from the filtered sunlight and partly from the places where the cloth has been holding the room's still air longest. A seam runs beneath the fingers and feels flatter than the rest. The weave is not rough, but it is honest enough to remain itself under the hand. Not silk, not anything that asks to be admired, only linen used often enough to become trustworthy. The kind of fabric that takes the shape of rest seriously. The curtain nearest the window stirs almost not at all. It hangs in long vertical folds, brighter where the daylight reaches its outer edge, and dimmer where the fabric turns inward on itself. Beyond it, the window is present mostly as softened brightness. You do not need the full view of whatever lies outside. It is enough that the curtain is holding afternoon at a distance and giving the room back to itself in a quieter form. Whatever garden or terrace or stretch of summer light remains beyond the fabric does not need to be followed. It only needs to exist there, pale and quiet on the other side of the fold. The room offers very little that the body must account for. A side table, perhaps, close enough to matter only if the hand were to reach. A folded throw set over one end of the daybed. A closed book left where it was no longer needed. A wall nearby, pale in the filtered light. The floorboards beneath the daybed, visible only where the light reaches out past the cover and then withdraws again. None of these things needs much attention. The daybed is already enough. The pillow or bolster behind you begins to matter next. At first, it is only there at your back, part of the room's arrangement. Then, as the shoulders settle, it becomes support. The upper body no longer needs to hold itself with the same alertness it carried into the room. One shoulder gives a little, then the other. The line of the back begins to understand what it is to be received instead of maintained. That shift is small, but it changes everything. Sitting becomes less like posture and more like remaining. The daylight through the curtain reaches you in gentler ways than direct sun would. a warmer patch across one knee, a pale brightness on the linen beside your hand, a softened line along the edge of the pillow or bolster where the fabric catches light before turning back into shade. One side of the body feels more touched by that brightness than the other. The side nearer the curtain carries a little more warmth. The side turned inward holds more of the room's stillness. Between those two, the body finds its own middle place. You shift once, not because anything is wrong, only because the Daybed allows for more ease than the first settling could hold. A knee eases a little outward or in. One hand slides lower into the lap. The shoulders lean more fully into what is behind them. The linen answers in the smallest way, then stills again. That small answer matters. It means the Daybed is not merely under the body. It is beginning to carry it. The room remains quiet enough that the filtered light becomes one of the main events, though even that is too much to call an event. It changes by degrees. The curtain takes the afternoon and lays it into the room in softened portions. A paler band near the wall, a warm dullness over the Daybed cover, a faint brightness on the floorboards near the leg of the side table, if there is one. The light does not insist, it rests. That is part of what makes the room feel expensive, not luxury, not decoration. Only measured stillness, truthful fabric, and a Daybed that already knows what bodies ask of it when the afternoon begins to thin. You let your hand rest more fully on the linen. The cloth has softened at the center where repeated afternoons must have pressed it into use. The edge nearest the seam holds itself a little tighter. Further out, the fabric loosens by degrees. These are not details that ask to be studied. They only reassure. The Daybed has held stillness before. The room has seen this kind of afternoon before. You do not have to invent how to be here. Everything already knows its role. The curtain keeps the outside world in its proper place. There may be brightness beyond it, perhaps even the suggestion of leaves or a wall or sky beyond the glass, but the room does not need that to become more specific. The curtain has done the most important part already. It has reduced outside to something indirect. The world remains on the far side of fabric and pain. Here, what matters is linen, pillow, daylight softened almost into shade, and the body beginning to hand over more of its weight than before. Your breathing slows without needing to be instructed to. Not deeply. Not in a way that makes itself felt all at once. Only enough that the upper chest does less of the work, and the Daybed beneath you seems to notice first. A little more weight settles through the hips. A little more of the back gives itself to the support behind it. The shoulders no longer keep their earlier outline so firmly. This is the first true resting, not arrival, not placement, resting. The room seems smaller now than it did at first, though nothing in it has changed. The Daybed has become the center, the curtain the outer edge, the pillow the place the upper body returns to. The side table or folded throw, if present, exists only as part of the near field around the bed. The room no longer has to be understood broadly. It has already become measured by reach. One hand on linen, one shoulder into support, one side touched by filtered warmth, one pale curtain holding the day at a distance. That is enough to begin. The longer you remain on the Daybed, the more the room seems to gather itself around it. What at first was simply a quiet afternoon room becomes a room shaped by the length and surface of this one resting place. The wall behind the pillow matters because it is close to the shoulders. The curtain matters because it is near enough to soften the light that falls across the bed. The side table, if there is one, matters only because it remains within the same small field as hand, pillow, Daybed edge, and folded throw. Even the floorboards beneath the bed seem less like a floor and more like the quiet foundation under the one place where rest is happening. The linen continues to tell the truth about itself. It has softened most where the body leans longest. It lies flatter along one section where a hand must often have smoothed it after rising. The part beneath your thighs holds a little more warmth now than it did at first, not because the room has changed, but because the body has remained. The cloth remembers weight quickly. It gathers that memory into its folds and keeps it there. You shift only enough to let the Daybed carry more of you. A shoulder eases back another fraction. The side of the head finds the edge of the pillow or bolster more fully. One leg lengthens, then stills. The body is not yet fully reclined, but it no longer belongs to upright sitting either. It has entered the slower middle state between them, where support begins to matter more than posture. The curtain goes on reducing the afternoon. That is its quiet labor. Brightness exists beyond it, but never in a way that asks to be followed. The fabric takes the edge off everything the day still holds outside the room. If there is movement beyond the pane, it reaches you only as altered light. If leaves pass across the brightness, they do so as a soft dimming and lifting through cloth. If the sun lowers, it lowers in the room first as tone, not as scene. The outside world continues, but what reaches you now is only the gentlest remainder. This allows the body to stop dividing itself. Out there and in here no longer compete. The room has already taken over. The pillow or bolster becomes more important as you remain. At first, it was only part of the arrangement. Now it begins to receive the places in the body that no longer want to hold themselves away from support. One shoulder leans more fully into it. The side of the neck stops making such a careful line of itself. Even the head begins to understand what it would mean to rest there later, without having to hold itself up in the old way. A hand may remain on the linen. The other may rest loosely in the lap or near the edge of the Daybed where the fabric ends and the frame begins. If your fingers happen to find the frame, they feel the difference at once. Linen softens. The Daybed edge remains firmer, warmer where the light has reached it, smoother where hands have often landed. That contrast is useful. It keeps the senses gently occupied without waking them further. Cloth, wood, warmth, support, that is enough. The room's air is still in the way only enclosed rooms can be still. Not stale, not heavy, only held. The curtain keeps the light from becoming too direct. The walls keep the afternoon from spreading too widely. The Daybed keeps the body from needing to find rest for itself somewhere harder or less certain. Even the warmth in the room has become room-sized now. It does not lie equally across everything. It settles in the linen touched by light. It lingers in the pillow where the body leans. It rests more lightly at the edges where shade and fabric meet and the room begins to cool by almost imperceptible degrees. The room no longer needs to tell you much about itself. That is part of its strength. It does not have to become elaborate in order to feel complete. A curtain, a Daybed, a pillow, a folded throw within reach, a nearby wall, perhaps a closed book left at the side. These things are enough because they are all in relation to the resting body. Nothing else matters as much now. The Daybed grows more central with every breath. It is no longer furniture in a room. It is what the room is becoming. The curtain exists because the Daybed lies beneath it. The pillow exists because shoulders and head are beginning to need it more fully. The throw exists because later, if needed, it can be drawn over the legs. The small table exists only if the hand might reach it, though now the hand does not need to. This is how the room narrows, not by losing objects, by making only a few of them matter. You let your head lean a little more, not a dramatic change, only enough that the neck gives over some of its earlier effort. The pillow receives this almost immediately. It does not collapse. It simply gives back the exact amount of support needed to let the head remain where it is without asking for correction. The shoulders lower by another small degree. The spine no longer keeps the same inward reserve of uprightness. The body has moved further toward resting than it has toward sitting. Outside remains only as brightness beyond the fabric. No more than that is needed. Perhaps the curtain glows a little more strongly along one fold than another. Perhaps a lower section of it carries a softer tone, where the light does not reach as directly. Perhaps there is the faintest suggestion of a garden wall or leaf shadow beyond, but if so, it never quite becomes a thing to look at. It remains only a dim outer layer. The room has become more real than whatever lies beyond the curtain. A little more weight gives way. The hips sink, the back settles, the hands become quieter. The body no longer feels arranged, it feels received. This is the point where the Daybed begins doing almost all the work. It keeps the length of the body supported. It receives the shoulders. It holds the linen smooth where needed and gathered where not. It lets the pillow take the head without the rest of the body needing to rise in response. It places the afternoon in softened light at just enough distance to reassure without ever demanding. You are not asleep, but the body has begun to understand that it could be here without much more happening at all. One more tiny movement may still come. A hand settling further into the fold of the cover. A shoulder turning a fraction. The head leaning more fully into the pillow. A knee easing out or in. After that, there is very little left to improve. The room has grown smaller in the field of attention now. There is no broader house, no larger layout, no account of doors or corners or adjoining spaces. Only the Daybed and what remains nearest to it, the pillow behind the shoulders and head, the linen beneath the hand, the curtain taking the afternoon into itself, the nearby wall, the folded throw at one end, the faintest hint of brightness beyond fabric. That is enough for a deeper nap state to become believable. The longer you remain, the less the daylight through the curtain feels like daylight at all. It becomes simply the gentler side of the room, the paler side, the side where a little warmth still rests along the linen and the edge of one sleeve or knee. The rest of the room gathers itself into a quieter tone around that, not darker in any strong sense, only more inward. The pillow now holds more of the head's weight than before. The side of the face may turn a little into it. The neck eases. The shoulders no longer seem to belong to the same alert shape they had earlier in the afternoon. They belong to the Daybed now, to fabric, to stillness. The upper body has stopped carrying the day in quite the same way. The hands are quiet enough not to need mention except that they remain. One on linen, perhaps, feeling the slight rise and fall of cloth where the body breathes beneath it. The other near the edge or at the lap, no longer waiting to do the next thing. The room does not need to deepen by adding anything more. It deepens by letting what is already here continue without interruption. The linen remains. The curtain remains. The daylight beyond it softens further. The Daybed receives more of you. The pillow keeps the head. Nothing else is necessary. A breath passes slowly, then another. The room seems quieter than the day beyond the curtain now, not because the outside has stopped, only because it has been made so distant by fabric and stillness that it no longer has any real claim on the body. Whatever summer brightness remains beyond the pane belongs to the afternoon outside. Here, on the Daybed, what matters is nearer and smaller than that. The linen beneath you, the pillow at the side of the head, the filtered light through the curtain, the warmth held where the light has lingered, the quiet air of the room, the body no longer carrying itself in the old way. That is enough. The Daybed now feels less like something you are using and more like the resting field itself. The body does not relate to it as furniture anymore. It relates to it as support, as the thing beneath back, hips, thighs, shoulder, hand. The linen and cushion have become the immediate world. The curtain and the wall are only the room's outer edge, held close enough that nothing wider needs to be imagined. The outside has thinned almost to irrelevance. What reaches you from beyond the curtain is only brightness made harmless. No view, no distinct garden, no real claim of movement, only a pale, softened presence outside the fabric, enough to reassure the senses that the afternoon continues somewhere beyond the room without asking you to take part in it. A little more of your weight gives way. The hips settle deeper into the bed. The shoulder nearest the pillow lowers. The head rests more fully. The upper body has almost completely given up its older upright arrangement now. This is the true drift of the nap, not a dramatic descent, only the steady replacement of self-support with received support. The curtain goes on making the light gentler. The linen goes on making contact quieter. The pillow goes on holding the head. The room goes on remaining exactly as it is. The story does not need to expand. It needs only to continue here until the body stops dividing itself between day and rest, between room and outside, between now and whatever comes next. That has almost happened already. The nearest objects begin to matter less as named things and more as presence. The curtain is no longer fabric in the active sense. It is simply the softened source of brightness. The linen is no longer something spread over the Daybed. It is simply the cloth under hand and body. The pillow is no longer a cushion chosen by the head. It is simply where the head now rests. The Daybed is no longer a piece of furniture in a room. It is simply what lies beneath you and keeps you held. This is what narrowing feels like in a premium nap story. Not emptiness, only sufficiency. Nothing more is needed than this. The hands remain. The breath remains. The support remains. The faded brightness beyond the curtain remains at the proper distance. The rest no longer needs to be actively known. A long stillness passes like that, made of almost nothing more than these few continuities. The linen holding the body, the pillow supporting the head, the curtain reducing the day, the Daybed keeping all of it steady, the breath lifting, and settling without disturbing anything else. If some softened sound forms beyond the room now, it is too far away to matter before it fades. If the summer afternoon continues outside, it does so without needing witness. If the brightness beyond the curtain lowers another quiet shade, it lowers too gently to ask for attention. What remains nearest is smaller than all of that. The linen, the pillow, the faded brightness through fabric, the quiet weight of your hands, the support beneath the body, the slow rise and fall of breath, and after that less and less to notice. The room no longer asks to be seen, the Daybed no longer asks to be described, the curtain no longer asks to be looked at. They have already done their work. The body no longer listens for what changes. It rests in what remains. The Daybed receives what is left of wakefulness. The pillow keeps the head. The linen keeps the body in contact with itself and with stillness. The curtain keeps the day outside and yet near enough that the room never feels closed away from it entirely. A breath passes, then another. The warmth held in the linen remains. The hands stay where they rest. The shoulders do not rise again into effort. The head no longer asks to hold itself up. Nothing interrupts, nothing enters. Nothing asks for one more adjustment, one more outward glance, one more thought before drifting. Only the Daybed beneath you, the linen under hand and body, the dimmed afternoon through the curtain, the room's small held stillness. Then even those distinctions begin to soften, until there is almost nothing left but the feeling of being gently carried by fabric, light, and support in one quiet afternoon room.